In this video, we'll take a look at an innovative React feature called Portals that lets you render React elements outside of the DOM hierarchy of the parent component. In doing so, we'll examine the use of the createPortal function from the React DOM library. React apps are mounted to a DOM node. You can see this usually in the index.js file at the root of a React application, where we use the React DOM.render function to mount our app component to a DOM node. This means that your entire React application gets rendered inside one single DOM element in an HTML file. One of the benefits of using React is that it can be incrementally brought in to an existing website. So let's say on an existing layout such as this, you might want to bring in your React app into this section here. This means every DOM node that your React application generates will be done inside this container because we are mounting our app here. Now, what if you want this React app to render something in a div outside of this parent container? What if it is a modal dialog or some notification display that needs to be rendered in a DOM node outside the hierarchy of the parent DOM node? This is where portals come into the picture. Let's see portals in action to understand how they work. Begin by downloading and setting up the project archive from the link given on the screen. We have our hot reloading server up and running. This app is a simple to-do list with data persistence using local storage. Whatever we store in the list persists until removed in a given browser. What we want to do now is add a visual unit at this position on the page that displays the number of tasks in our list. The HTML page for our project resides in the public folder, and you'll notice this div with the ID root. Our React app, made up of all the components, is rendered within this div right here because the React DOM.render method in our index.js file mounts the app in this specific div. So if you create HTML elements outside of this div, they will not be accessible by the app, and anything you manually create inside this div will be overridden by React. Portals allow you to access and use HTML elements outside of this root div. To demonstrate this, I'll create a div with the ID task count outside the root div like so. The CSS for this selector positions this container at roughly this location above the main app. Now, since we want to display the number of tasks in our list, we'll first go in our list app component and we'll export a property called count, which basically gives us the length of the list state array. Since we are using render props here, using the children prop as the medium will simply get the count prop here to fetch the number of tasks. Now, let's create a component that displays the count, and this is what we'll mount using the portals feature in the div we created in our HTML file earlier. I'll call this component task count, and it'll be a simple function component that renders a div setting a data property called count, which will be consumed using the after pseudo element that we have used in the style sheet for this element. The value for the count is being fetched using a prop named count. Now, let me create a reusable component called portal. The idea behind this component is that it will let me render its children in a given DOM node that is outside the parent hierarchy. So, in the portal.js file, we'll first import the createPortal method from the React DOM library. Note that we are not importing this method from the core React library. This is because React is medium agnostic by design. The same core library is used both on the web, where there is a DOM, and on mobile using React Native, where there isn't a DOM. So all web-specific DOM operations and functions are available through the React DOM library, and that's where we get our createPortal method from. Our portal component should accept children using the special children prop and a selector to a DOM node to mount the children in. We'll simply return an invocation of createPortal, passing the children, which could be React elements, fragments, arrays, strings, numbers, etc. And we'll need to pass in a selector to the DOM node. Once we're done with this, let's import our two components in the app.js file first. Then down here, I'll first enclose this structure in fragments because we also need to render our portals component here as the top level sibling. Then we'll create an instance of the portal component, and anything that goes inside the opening and closing tags would be mounted wherever we want. But first, we'll set the DOM node prop to a selector that references the task count div which we made in the beginning in our HTML file. Now we can simply create an instance of task count, setting the count prop to the count variable like so. And there you go. We can see one task in our list. Let me add a few and you can see the count value dynamically update as desired. As you saw in this example, portals offer a convenient way to render React elements outside the DOM hierarchy of the parent component. In the next video, we'll take a look at how event bubbling works with portals.